Imagine this, a major global brand expanded into a new market, confident that its logo carefully crafted, instantly recognizable, will seamlessly connect with local consumer. But instead of admiration, it faces confusion, indifference, or even backlash. What went wrong? The issue isn't the logo itself, the problem is context. What looks familiar and appealing in one country can feel foreign or even offensive in another. The reason? Country difference in symbolism, color, and typography.
Logos are more than just design. They are often the first visual encounter consumers have with a brand. They carry meaning beyond just a name. They evoke emotions. They build connections that run recognitions into loyalty. But even the strongest logo can fail if they aren't adapted to fit the culture they are entering. And this raises in a key question. If a brand doesn't adapt its logo, does anything bad actually happen? The short answer, yes. Brand that fails to consider cultural adaptations risk consider like miscommunication, that logo's message doesn't translate as intended, loss of relevance, the brand feels disconnect from local consumer, reputation damage. A logo can intentionally send the wrong message. Imagine launching a brand with a logo that unknowingly represents bad luck, mourning, or a political statement in another country. Certainly, instead of engagement, the brand face backlash. These are not just small missteps. They can have a very big, real business consequences. I'm Shiyao Wu, a designer passionate about the intersection of brand, culture, and visual communication. My research focused on how global brands navigated local adaptation, when they succeed, when they fail, and when it matters. I have studied numerous cases where brands expanded internationally only to realize their visual identity needed more than just a direct translation. It needed cultural adaptation. A single design can't always communicate the same message across different cultural lenses. And when brands fail to acknowledge this, they lose their ability to connect with consumers in meaningful ways. In my later talk, I will dive into real-world case studies of brands that struggled or succeeded in logo adaptation, and I will include key strategies that helps brands navigate cultural difference in visual identities. And I will have the balance between consistency and the localizations of how to adapt it without lose brand essence. And by understanding these case studies, we can explore how brands can create logos that don't just exist globally, but resonate locally. A logo is a brand's first handshake with the world. It has the power to create lasting trust or immediately disconnect. As brands expanded globally, brand adaptation isn't just a design choice, it's a strategically necessity. But what happens when brands fail to adapt? Let's take a closer look at one of the most infamous examples, Pepsi's logo mishap in China. In the early 1960s, Pepsi launched an ambitious campaign in China as part of its global expansion strategy. The company's slogan at the time, "Come alive, you are in the Pepsi generation," was meant to evoke feeling of refreshment and revitalization. Sounds great, right?
Unfortunately, the translation into Mandarin caused unintended consequences. The slogan was rendered as, "Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the dead." The reaction was immediate and negative. In Chinese culture, ancestral respect and honoring the dead are deeply ingrained traditions. The concept of summoning the deceased is not only unsettling, but also culturally inappropriate. The phrase inadvertently disrespected these values, making consumers hesitant to trust the brand. Pepsi's mistake stemmed from relying on a direct, literal translation without considering the cultural implications. The failure highlighted the importance of understanding symbolic language and the nuances of meaning in different markets. While this was a language translation failure, it underscores the significance of cultural adaptation, because logos, like words, carry deep meanings across different societies. Had Pepsi conducted a comprehensive cultural assessment and worked closely with local experts, they might have avoided alienating an entire market segment. To understand more about this case, I spoke with Dr. Michael Tan, a leading cultural branding consultant with over 20 years of experience. Dr. Tan has worked extensively with Fortune 500 companies, helping them navigate complex cultural landscapes when expanding globally. His expertise in semiotics and cross-cultural communication makes him particularly skilled at identifying potential pitfalls in brand messaging. When I reached out to Dr. Tan for this conversation, he greeted me warmly with a calm, thoughtful presence. He's known not just for his expertise, but also for his ability to explain complex concepts in relatable terms. After we exchanged greetings and I shared my fascination with his work, we quickly got into discussing the Pepsi incident.
Hi, Dr. Tan. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. The Pepsi exchange in China has become something of a cautionary tale in marketing. Why do you think it still resonates so strongly in branding conversation?
Thank you, Xiao. It's a pleasure to be here. The Pepsi case resonates because it highlights how even global giants aren't immune to cultural missteps. It's a reminder that language and symbolism are deeply personal and emotional. Misinterpretations can happen when brands fail to acknowledge those nuances.
It seems like such a mistake could be avoided with a simple translation check. And why wasn't that enough?
Many companies assume that direct translation is sufficient, but language is more than just words. It involves cultural context and emotional nuance. A literal translation may not capture the intended tone or meaning, and in this case, it caused severe backlash.
Do you think the brand could have handled this situation differently once the mistake was made?
Definitely. Crisis management is just as important as preventing the crisis itself. While Pepsi did address the issue, they could have issued a more transparent apology, emphasizing a commitment to learning from the mistake. Acknowledging cultural respect goes a long way in repairing trust.
That makes sense. What would you recommend brands do differently to avoid similar situations?
Brands should involve local experts throughout their branding and marketing process. Conducting linguistic and cultural audits, using focus groups, and engaging with consultants who understand the culture deeply is crucial. It's also essential to test visuals and slogans in market before a full launch.
And from a designer's perspective, how can we ensure our work resonates cross-culturally?
Designers should develop a sensitivity to symbolism and color associations. A flexible design system that allows slight adaptations for different cultures can help maintain brand identity while respecting local values. Ultimately, good design is empathetic design.
Now let's look at a purely visual mistake that sparked controversy. In 1997, Nike introduced the Air Bacon, a high-performance basketball shoe designed to capture attention with its striking flame-like logo. The design was intended to evoke energy, motion, and the intensity of the sport. Featuring bold red and orange colors with a curved, dynamic logo on the heel, Nike hoped to reinforce its reputation as a brand that celebrated athletic excellence. However, the brand's design choice faced unforeseen backlash. In some Islamic communities, the flame-like symbol resembled the Arabic script for Allah. In Islamic culture, the name of Allah is sacred, and any misuse is deeply offensive. The offense was further amplified by the fact that the logo was placed on the sole of the shoe, a place associated with dirt and impurity, making the perceived disrespect even more severe. The backlash was swift and intense. Protesters called for a boycott, and religious leaders demanded the removal of the product. Muslim communities in various regions voiced their anger, leading to a widespread controversy that damaged Nike's reputation in those markets. Nike responded by recalling thousands of shoes, publicly apologizing, and pledging to strengthen its cultural sensitivity processes. The brand redesigned the shoe, removing the controversial symbol and emphasizing its commitment to respecting cultural and religious values. This incident serves as a powerful reminder of how even a seemingly harmless design can carry unintended meaning across different cultures. It underscores the necessity of rigorous cultural evaluation in the design process to prevent future missteps.
Successful brands don't just translate their messaging. They translate their entire visual identity to fit cultural expectation while keeping their brand essence intact. And let's look at some brands that got it right. McDonald's golden arches are universal, but have you ever noticed that the background color isn't always red? In India, McDonald's use a deeper maroon instead of bright red. Why? Because in Indian consumer psychology, bright red is associated with aggressive sales tactics, which doesn't resonate well with customer. Maroon, on the other hand, feels more premier and inviting. In the Middle East, McDonald's incorporates Arabic script while keeping the iconic golden arches. The simple change ensured the logo feels local without losing its global identity. And in France, McDonald's uses a green background instead of red. This aligns with the French market, focused on organic, eco-friendly products and elevated the brand perception. By making subtle yet meaningful adaptations, McDonald's ensures it still feels familiar, yet locally relevant. Another brand, Coca-Cola, is one of the world's most recognizable logos, but did you know that it looks different in Russia, China, and Middle East? In China, Coca-Cola faced a challenge. Its name didn't really translate well into Mandarin, so the company adapted to Coca-Cola, which sounds similar to Coca-Cola, but also means delicious happiness. And this clever adaptation ensures brand recognition while creating an emotional connection with Chinese consumers. And in Russia, Coca-Cola adopted the Cyrillic script while maintaining the iconic swirl of its typography. And these adaptations help it feel native to Russia's consumers while preserving its brand essence. And in Arabic-speaking countries, Coca-Cola had to adjust its typography for right-to-left reading. However, instead of simply mirroring the logo, the company redesigned it to retain its flow and energy. And this proved that localized a logo isn't just about translating text. It's about respecting cultural aesthetics. What can we learn from these case studies? So, how can brands and designers successfully translate logo across cultures? There are three key strategies. Flexible identity system. Some brands maintain a core logo but allow variation. Localized typography and symbols, adjusting fonts, layout, and iconography to fit different language and cultural aesthetics. Context sensitivity, color adjustment, modifying color while preserving brand essence to align with cultural meaning. A well-adapted logo isn't about making drastic changes, but about refining visual elements to create harmony across cultures. Final takeaways. At its core, logo adaptation is about communication. A globally successful logo is both recognizable and adaptable. It acknowledges cultural difference while preserving brand identity. And most importantly, it helps brands connect with consumers in a meaningful way. In a world that is more connected than ever, designing for cultural sensitivity is no longer optional, it's essential. Thank you.